Alright, hey everyone, and welcome back to my second channel. I thought today it would be fun to do a little kind of like reading wrap up of just a few of the books I've been reading in January and February of, the start of 2025, and just kind of talk about like which ones were my favourite, which ones were my least favourite, and just share some of my thoughts. I do have notes on my iPad, so let me go find them for you. Okay, I've got 5 books we're going to be talking about very briefly today. Okay, first one I want to talk about that I read, literally just finished it like a couple of nights ago, is There's No Such Thing as an Easy Job by Kikuko Tsumura. This one gave me similar vibes to the Delegate Dream department store, which you may have seen me talk about on this channel before. And I realised it's got the same translator, so I think there's definitely some similarities there in terms of like tone and vibes and just like how it's written in terms of like how it's translated to English, but also because like both books don't really have a lot going on in terms of like you can't really be like, this is the plot and these things happen. It's more like, here's a really cool world and here's some interesting characters in it and here's some vague things that happen, but it's more about like the vibes and the feeling and that sort of thing. So basically there's this woman who becomes burnt out at her job and decides to try and take on an easy job instead. She wants something low effort that she doesn't have to think about, she doesn't have to become emotionally invested in, she isn't going to get burnt out with. And yet she still finds herself becoming increasingly emotionally invested in each role she takes on in one way or another. She says she doesn't want that, but yet she finds herself doing it over and over again. There's 5 stories in this book of 5 jobs she takes on over the space of about a year. Each is a little different. It's nice because, sorry, Kubi sleeping. Well, she's snoring down at the foot of the bed. You can probably hear her. But yeah, it's nice because they're almost like 5 standalone stories, but with the main character kind of, being the same throughout. And especially in the last story, there's a nice few little tie-ins to the others and things that happen and characters that come back. So I liked it. It was good. Some of the stories fall a little more into kind of like magical realism. However, I'd say maybe like 2 of them are kind of slightly more rooted in reality, but they still have like little twists in that there's still, I don't want to say like they're crime stories or thriller stories or anything like that. One of them involves a crime, we'll say that, and another involves a cult. They're not quite as exciting as they sound, but that's not a bad thing. They feel very much grounded in real life. There's no sensationalism, there's no craziness. It's not like, oh my god, and then the cult did this, and then the cult did this, and then it's like, oh yeah, this woman notices something strange, and she follows the information, and she finds out about it, she's like, oh, there's a cult. And then, once it's discovered, the cult moves on, and then you don't really know what happens after that. Like, it's very mundane, it's very real life, but again, that's not a bad thing, that's really not a bad thing. I loved the magical realism in certain stories, so that's not the 2 I was just talking about, but like some of the others, like, so the bus advertisement one was really good. There was a nice little bit of like magical realism in that. The cookie wrapper story, I really liked that. That wasn't magical realism at all, but that one, I liked it, but it was the one that made me feel tensest. That's not a word. It's the one that made me feel the most tense out of all the stories in the book. Like, the only one that actually made me feel tense. And I think that was because, like, there's a part in it where she feels like her job is going to be replaced by someone else, and she doesn't know how she feels about that, because on the one hand she doesn't want to be emotionally invested, but she kind of is, and she kind of wouldn't mind being replaced, but also she would mind it, and in the end she kind of like gives up the job to that person anyway. But I was like feeling my own anxieties about like, oh god, I would hate to be replaced, I hate to feel like someone's like muscling in on my territory. So yeah, that one kind of played on my personal insecurities a bit and made me a little tense. But the others, they were just very relaxing little stories. They were good. I didn't know what to think of the book when I read the first story. I felt like it really kind of like kicked in with the second one, the bus advertisement one, and that was where I was like, oh, I get it now, I get what it's going for, I get what's happening here, I get the whole vibe. And I liked that, and I'm glad I kind of powered through the uncertainty of the first story to get to that second one, because it was good. It is a really good book to read before bed, because the stakes in it all feel quite low, and you can just pick it up and put it down as you wish. It's very much a book about the journey, not the destination, both in terms of the plot of the book and your experience of reading the book. So I really liked that. It's not going to be for everyone. Some people are going to be like, this was so dull, nothing happened, why did I waste my time? And in a certain mindset, I might also fall into that camp, but recently it's been exactly what I needed to just kind of switch off and relax and just be like, I'm just going to be in this fictional world and this is fine, this works, this is good. The book I read before this was actually a reread, and it's my first reread of the year. It's my first reread in ages, actually. No, that's a lie. No, I reread some Neil Gaiman's recently as part of researching that video on him on my main channel, so that's a lie. But okay, it's my first reread for pleasure in a while. Well, actually, no, it wasn't even completely for pleasure. I'm just making things up here, aren't I? It was a reread. That's all I can kind of tell you. Basically, I reread The Secret Life of Fungi by Aliya Whiteley, and I wanted to read this as part of gathering research and information and inspiration for a poem that I'm currently working on, centered around fungi. It was meant to be one I was performing at like an art exhibition coming up this month, but I don't know, I just had a really weird feeling about doing the performance. And I just felt a bit like, I don't know how to put it into words. There's nothing rational in my feelings. It's all just like a weird gut feeling where I was like, I don't think I should be doing this. And I went back and forth on whether I was going to do it. And in the end, I just kind of like let time run out to answer, because I was like, I don't want, no. I don't know. I just felt like they didn't really want me there. It was just, I got the slot because they didn't have anyone else, and I'd like offered to do it in the first place and like waive my performance fee for them, but then based on like other circumstances I just kind of felt a little bit weirdly taken advantage of, and I don't know, everything, it was just vibes of everything just made me feel really bad and wrong, and I was like, I don't think I can do this. But I'm still finishing the poem and writing it, which is good. It's coming along really well, and I think it's gonna be nice when it's done. But anyway, so the point is, I reread the book for that purpose, and also just because I really enjoy it. If you've seen any of my, I've got like 2 little really cute fungi based videos on my main channel that not many people watched, but were really, really fun to make. And in at least one of them I speak about that book, and it's one of my favourite books of all time, and I really love it. And it just makes me feel so like comforted and happy, and it's really nice to like, you know, learn all the fun facts about fungi, and it's really, it just makes me want to go outside. I've been really, really feeling down with all the cold weather recently, and we had one day of sun, which was lovely, and now it's gone again. But yeah, I just can't wait for it to be warmer, for it to be like properly springtime, and for me to be able to like go out, like walk in the forest again with Kyra. I want to go cycling again, I miss that, and like going nice places and taking photos and everything, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That book helped. Another one I read recently was Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. Yes, I have thoughts. I read the first book, Fourth Wing, a while back, and I really, really loved it. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was very fun. I listened to the second book as an audiobook, and I listened to this one as an audiobook too. Sorry, my tumble dryer is getting quite loud. I found that as audiobooks they were very good to have on in the background while I was doing something else, like painting or doing the washing or, you know, boring stuff. Not that painting's boring, that one's fun, but you know what I'm trying to say. Because they're very, very simple books. They're very easy to read and listen to and whatever. Like they're not complex, they're not, I don't know, like they're not high art, you know, but they are, at least the first one I found really engaging, and I really liked the world bit. I loved the dragons. They behave like dogs. Of course I loved the dragons. They were fantastic. The second book I did not like as much. It just dragged on for far too, it didn't need to be as long as it was. Anyway, we'll I think I spoke about it in another video. It didn't need to be as long as it was. It was quite boring in places. Not enough happened to justify the length of it. The third one was also quite bad. This one, Onyx Storm. However, I did find it better than the second one, which I haven't seen many people say. I felt it had more potential story-wise than the second one. It just didn't fulfill that potential, which was frustrating. I have a lot of notes on this, so I had thoughts. Let me just read you my notes and we'll see if there's anything more to say. So, this one I think I preferred a little to the second book, because in this one there was less relationship back and forth for no reason, but there was still too much of a relationship focus for me when that's the most boring part of the book. That's the Violet and Xaden relationship. I'll be honest, couldn't care less about it. Give me more dragons, less of the smooching, please. I do care about the dragons. I was genuinely shocked when I thought a certain someone got injured and I genuinely thought they were dead, and that made me... I was sad. I was very emotional. I had to stop what I was doing when that bit happened. Turns out they were fine. That's good. But that's what I want. And like, this is why I prefer it to the second book, because at least I had a few of those like emotional moments where I actually like cared about someone. I just care about the dragons, I'll be honest. I just care about the dragons. Okay, spoilers ahead here. If you haven't read it, I'm gonna be giving spoilers in this next bit, so bear with me. I really liked meeting Aldana's family. I thought they were in the right. I am on their side in all of this, yes. I liked the trip around the different islands. I just wish there'd been a bit more variety in the experiences that the group had had on each island. Each one was like the same format. It was like they turn up, there's a test, they leave. It didn't really feel like there were any long-term consequences. It felt a bit dull. Even the bit meeting the dragons wasn't as well written as it could have been. I thought it could have lasted longer. Like, I wanted more of that and like less of the like, oh, but he can't have sex with me, boo hoo hoo hoo. Like, I don't care about that. Give me more dragons. I'm just gonna keep saying it. See. I wrote here, this might make me sound like a massive hypocrite after my book talk video, but I found myself so bored by the gratuitous sex scenes, which added absolutely nothing and didn't move the plot along at all, that I sped up my audiobook during those sections. I was essentially skim listening to those bits. At one point, it was a whole chapter of just sex, and I skim listened to it. I normally listen to my audiobooks at 2 times speed. That's fine, that's just how my brain works. I like taking information fast. YouTube videos I watch at 2 times speed as well. That's normal for me. The sex scenes I was on 3 times speed because I was just like, I don't care. And it's like you have to listen to them because you're like, ugh, what if they do like randomly discuss a plot point in the middle of orgasm? And I'm like, ugh, they never do. They don't. But you're like, what if? So you can't just skip it. And then you're like, ugh, but it's boring. Anyway, my next point literally just says what I've already said. I'm genuinely not invested in their relationship at all. I couldn't care less whether they end up together or not. I don't care. Here's something I do care about with the characters though. I miss Violet. I miss Violet and what's her name? The roommate from the first book. I can't remember her name. So little time is spent on her in this book that I don't remember her name anymore. Violet had like a roommate best friend in the first book that has now been completely forgotten about. I really liked their friendship. I want more of that and I want it bringing back. I also want more time spent on the siblings and their relationship because that is also genuinely interesting to me. Like they thought, again, spoilers, they thought the brother was dead. He's not. And like, the second and third book, I think, only happened over the span of like a year, if that, right? Like together, they're like a year. So they only found out he was alive, like what, 6 months ago? Their relationship should be like way more interesting and way more complex than it actually is in the books, and I want more time spent on that, please. I like the dynamic because the whole like older sister, middle brother, younger sister thing, and the kind of power between them, where like the older sister, she's like the physical one and the tough one, and the middle one's kind of like the smart one and a little bit more reserved, and then the younger one's like the little weakling who surprises everyone. Like, that's very much like me and my siblings. So I like it, and I kind of relate to it, and I want more. I just feel like as characters, they're all really like genuinely interesting, and I want to see more of that dynamic between them, and I want to see them like, especially now that both their parents are dead. Like, there could be a lot and it's just not explored. It's absolutely not. No. Some of the main plots I'm finding a little predictable. It also bothers me how dumb Violet gets at times. Like, she's supposed to have had this whole history as like, you know, she's trained her life to be like this researcher, this like smart intellectual, like she knows all the history type stuff, like the opposite of how I'm sounding now, like that kind of person, and she's barely using her brain at all, especially in this book, and it's quite annoying. I'm not a fan. There's suddenly this thing that like people can be venin but be hiding it and be like, oh no, anyone could be venin. Like, let's be honest, I think, okay, if this doesn't end up happening, I will at least give Rebecca Yarros points for surprising me. But I think it's quite obvious at this point that what's his name's dad, thingy Atos, like, oh god, see, character names have just gone from my head. The dad, the Atos dad guy, him, who's now in charge completely since the mother died, he's clearly venin, right? They made a big deal in this book about how, like, oh, it could be anyone around us now. They can hide it so well. Obviously he's venin. He's the one who, like, keeps setting them up for danger and doing all this stuff and, like, being in their way. And, like, and also he's just, like, a dodgy guy, isn't he? Clearly he is, surely. Anyway, yeah, exactly. The book, again, like the second one, was too long for how little actually happened. It could have been half the length. The whole travelling to other islands thing and discovering the history of the 7 species of dragon could have been amazing. It could have been reminiscent of the Lady Trent books / A Natural History of Dragons books, same series, which are some of my favourite books ever. And actually it was one of you guys who watches my main channel who sent me those books, and I can't remember your name right now, but it is in my scrapbook because I still have the gift note you sent with it. But yeah, I love those books so much. They're some of my favourites I've ever read, and I was starting to get the vibe of like, oh, maybe it'll be... It wasn't like that, but it could have been like that, but it wasn't. But yeah, I feel like with the premise and what was happening in terms of like the islands and the dragons, this had the potential to be my favourite of the 3 books so far, but it just didn't deliver. I liked, again, the idea of like her dad hiding books for her with like a bunch of information on another island, and then she was gonna have to go, like, but nothing ever really came of it. She gets the books and then they're just kind of like there in the background, and occasionally she's vaguely reading them, but I just wanted more made of them. I wanted them to give us more. I just wanted more. Okay, I basically said in conclusion, the first book felt like silly, fun fantasy with some romance. This just feels like generic romance, and then when she remembers, she throws in some fantasy elements that haven't really been that well thought out, and it's a shame. However, am I still going to read the other books? Yes, because in the words of every mastermind host ever, I've started, so I'll finish. Another fiction book I read these last 2 months was The Body in Question by Jill Ciment, and now I found this book to read after reading and not reviewing, I didn't really review it, but I read her memoir, Consent, as part of like researching another video on my main channel, and I think I quoted it or at least spoke about it in, which one was it? Was it my Neil Gaiman video? It might have been. And I found out that, like, you know, she's mostly known for writing fiction. I was like, oh, okay, let's read one of her books, and I did, and I enjoyed it far more than I expected to. It was incredibly easy to read and engaging, but still very, very thoughtful. It wasn't easy to read in the way that like Fourth Wing was easy, in that like you don't really need to think about it. It was easy in the way that like the writing style was very accessible, and it was very like deep and layered, and you kind of like got a lot out of it without realizing you were. It wasn't hard work to read, but it was still complex. Does that make sense? It's a sign of a very good writer, I thought. I did find that after reading Jill's memoir, I can 100% see how her real life influenced this novel. That's a huge thing. To give you a summary, and I'm going to read my notes for this, it's about a woman who is selected for jury duty on a murder trial. The trial of a teenage girl accused of killing her baby brother. Dark, I know. However, there are some doubts that maybe actually it was her twin that essentially arranged the murder and then forced the twin sister to confess instead. Meanwhile, while the trial is going on, the narrator starts to have an affair with one of the jurors, but this is all found out and comes to light after the trial, and around the same time that the juror woman, her husband, who is 30 plus years older than her, is diagnosed with cancer and dies. The book is surprisingly less about the trial and the murder and figuring out what actually happened, and more about the juror and her life and how all of these different elements are interacting. And it's about power dynamics and relationship. It's about power dynamics and how relationships with other people influence how we behave, how we form our opinions, how they form the lens through which we see the world, and how that can sometimes cause us to just straight up ignore the truth in front of us. It also, to me, raised a lot of questions about the reliability of the justice system. So like after the trial, Hannah finds out through the media and stuff like that, that there was a ton of information that was left out of the court case for being too prejudicial, causing too much prejudice. I can't say any words today. It would have caused too much prejudice. Got there eventually. Or it wasn't deemed important enough to bring into the court case. However, Hannah was like, oh God, if I'd known this during the trial, I would have voted differently. So it kind of gets you thinking about like, oh God, well, how accurate are court cases and the information presented in them? Hi, baby there. Hi, baby. Let me go give her a biscuit. 1 second. Yeah, it definitely gets you thinking about how it's so easy for innocent people to be wrongly convicted, and also guilty people and people who have committed crimes to get away with it so easily. It points out a lot of flaws in the justice system like that, especially in the American justice system, which is where that story is taking place. By the end of the book, we don't actually know who committed the crime or why. We are, just like Hannah in the story, left to speculate and come up with our own opinions and think what we will. Yeah, Kyrie in a biscuit, bless her. Yeah, I just found it gave me so much to think about, and I still I kind of want to go back and do a reread and just kind of like really analyze it a little bit more and be like, oh, okay, well, like, you know, when she's thinking this in the beginning, how does this change compared to when we know certain other things later? Trying to say without too many spoilers. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a great book. I would recommend it. The last thing I want to talk about is that I have been reading the Morning Glories comics. So I started the series at the end of last year and absolutely smashed through the first 8 or so volumes, and then just sort of like lost steam before I could start the 9th or 10th. So I've still got volumes 9 and 10 to read. But the first 8, I do want to finish it. Like, I do want to know what happens. I just think I'm a little bit burnt out on it. It's a 50-issue series, 10 volumes of 5 issues each, but it feels quite a bit longer because we're getting very little payoff for some of the original plot points and questions that it raises, and it feels like we're just getting a lot of new elements introduced and a lot of new characters introduced constantly without giving us any answers in between, and that's making it feel a lot longer than it is. So some of my main favourite comic series ever, which I've spoken about in like much older videos, but I don't think I have for a while. I love Fables, Chew, Why the Last Man, Sweet Tooth. They're some of my favourites amongst others. And what I really love about them is that they constantly wrap up stories along the way whilst introducing new stuff at the same time. So you still get that big overall arc to the stories, you still got a lot of amazing character development, but you're also getting answers along the way. and it's better for pacing, and it's better for like just making you feel a bit satisfied. You're never left frustrated or confused. Like at the minute, if I tried to explain to you what Morning Glories is about, I couldn't, because I don't have answers to the basic questions it brings up in the first few issues. I'm still waiting on those answers. I'm getting tiny bits of information along the way, and I'm getting a lot more questions, and I'm learning about like all these new characters and stuff. Like, so what I wrote in my notes is, Morning Glories isn't quite like that because they're always introducing new characters, new plots, new twists, new shocking moments, but our original questions still haven't been answered, so it feels a bit exhausting. It's hard to even explain what it's all about because I can only tell you setups. Yeah, but it doesn't really like explain much of anything. So like basically you have a bunch of teens at some prestigious academy, but it turns out there's like a hell of a lot more to it than that. Some have basically been headhunted to be there. Some have been forced to be there. Some are seemingly there by choice, but also kind of not really. Some are kind of spies that are there for another group who we know of, and we've seen some things they do, but we don't actually know who they are or what their motivation is. Some of the kids have kind of powers, some don't. It seems there's some magical elements and some time travel elements, but again, they're never fully explained. There's creepy cult vibes, people are being murdered. I'm this far in, 8 volumes into a 10-volume series, and I still couldn't tell you who's a good guy and who's a bad guy, or if there even are any bad guys, or even any good guys. Like, I don't know, is everyone a bad? Maybe everyone's a bad guy, I don't know. But like, this isn't in the like, oh, it's all like morally ambiguous kind of. It's in the like, no, we don't know because we don't have any answers, we only have questions kind of way. There's themes of nature versus nurture, identity, power and control, religion versus science. But again, I feel like I can't tell you about any of those in detail, or really comment about any of them, or even tell you if they're done well or not, because I don't have any sort of conclusion to any of the plot points to even give you an idea of what I think about any of it. If you'd asked me like to talk about some of the themes in, say, Why the Last Man at this point in the series, I could have been like, yeah, this, and then this plot did this, and this did this, and these characters did this, and you had this arc here that had this and this. Can't do that in this, because nothing's been concluded along the way. I am hoping it all pulls itself together by the last 2 volumes, but I am a little bit burnt out on it at the minute, and I need to find that balance to read the last 2 where I still remember everything that's happened so far, but I'm not so frustrated by it that I'm not going to enjoy them. So I need to find a time and a space to read them and finish them, and then maybe I'll come back here on this channel with some more thoughts. But we'll see. Okay, that was a lot of ranting. Oh my god. I feel like there was something else I'm reading for fun that I was going to tell you about, and I can't remember it. Didn't I finish something else recently? Oh yeah, okay. Okay, like other stuff that I've been reading is Jonathan Sims' 13 Stories. I am about 3/4 of the way through that. Really enjoying it. Some stories more than others, but generally I do like it. It's kind of, I want to say 13 stories in total. I mean, I guess. Kind of interconnected short stories about different people living in an apartment building, and all the stories are slightly interconnected in different ways, and they all happen kind of leading up to a certain event. I'm interested to see how it all comes together, but I am enjoying it right now. And I've also just started, because I can never have one book on the go, I never know what I'm going to be in the mood for. I'd say I just started, it's such a short book, I'm apparently 72% of the way through, but Martha Wells's All Systems Red, which is the first book in the Murderbot Diaries. I heard so many good things about that series, and people are like, if you want to get into sci-fi, this is a great place to do it, because I'm not really a sci-fi fan, I don't really like it. I do enjoy Andy Weir, I find his books very engaging, and I mean, they have some problems as well, I'm not going to pretend they're perfect, but I found them really engaging, really fun. Certain character in Project Hail Mary is one of my favourite characters in fiction, like, you know who I mean if you've read it. But yeah, so I thought I'd give these a go, because everyone says, again, they're very easy to read, they're very engaging, and They're quick to read, I'll say that. They're very short. This one is like 90 pages on my iPad. It's nothing. And I only started it like 2 nights ago, and I've been falling asleep quite quickly the last 2 nights. So that's how quickly I've got through it. And it's fine. It's okay. I don't think I'm like raving about it like everyone else is. Yeah, it's just okay. I kind of don't care about the plot. The characters are fine. I also kind of don't really care. So I'll see how it finishes up this last quarter, but I feel like maybe it's just not the book for me. It's not that it's a bad book, it's just maybe not the book for me is all. So we'll see where it goes. I'm also finding it quite interesting because I pictured the murder bot, the narrator, the main, it's essentially kind of like a robot with some human elements to it, if you will. It usually refers to itself as an it. It says it's genderless. But in my mind, I picture it very much as a woman. Don't ask me. Well, not a woman. That's not even right. I think I just picture it with like a feminine face and a feminine voice, but still somewhat androgynous. And I'm like, yeah, this was like, it used to be a female body and now it's a robot. That's what I picture. Apparently most of the readers picture a man. So, hi baby. You're okay. You're grumbling. Do you want me to be done soon? Okay, give me 2 minutes, gorgeous. Sorry, Kippy's getting grumbly. Yeah, it's like most people apparently picture like a male body that is somewhat androgynous, that then becomes a robot, but I don't see it. I don't see it at all. And apparently the audiobook is narrated by a man as well, and it's all first person, so I feel like I wouldn't enjoy the audiobook because it would just feel wrong, because in my mind it's got a woman's voice. Anyway, that's just me. Interesting how people view different things, because I looked up like pictures and I was like, oh, I wonder like if there's fan art of this, because I know it's got quite a big following. I was like, I'd love to see like what people think the robot looks like and that sort of thing. And I mean, there's a picture on the cover, but I want to see other people's interpretations of it. And nearly everyone has it with like a masculine face underneath, and I was like, no, that's wrong. No, that's not how I picture it. So I had to stop looking. But anyway, right, I'm rambling. That's where I'm at. Yeah, everything's good. It has been a good couple of months for reading, because even though I've had some things to rant about, like with the Onyx Storm book and stuff like that, I do quite enjoy having a rant, and at least it's making me feel something, and it's like, yeah, I'm getting I don't know, like emotional about it, and that's what's good. There's nothing better than a book that is just dull and bland and makes you feel nothing and you forget you've ever read it. And thankfully I've not had that the last couple of months, which is great. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking because I do have a singing lesson to go to, and I need to go and put some shoes on and get ready to go. But thank you for watching today here on the second channel. I appreciate you, you're wonderful, and I will see you again soon. Bye!